Hello, everyone, and welcome back for a brand new episode of Collider Connected. I have a wonderful guest who I admire quite a bit for many projects that we're going to get to in this conversation right now. Please welcome Jane Levy to the show. How are you doing over there?
It's so nice to talk to you again. I wonder how many times we've spoken.
Definitely more than, I would say more than twice for Evil Dead alone.
Yeah, I was thinking like 4 or 5.
One of my most precious things is the Evil Dead DVD that you and Fetty signed for me because it's one of my favorite box quotes that I've ever had in my entire career.
What's the box quote? I'm scared.
It's on the back, and I can't remember what's on the DVD and what's on the poster, but it's there and it's there for eternity. And because my name is on it, my 90-year-old Nana keeps it on her shelf in her home.
Wow, I'm so moved by this. I love it.
I do have one more Nana story for you, which might be really awkward because Nana loves horror movies. So we went together and we saw Don't Breathe in the theater, which is a choice.
You know what's crazy about that is my 90-plus-year-old grandmother saw Don't Breathe in the movie theater as well. And my grandmother is very proper. The last person on earth I would have told to go see that movie, but my aunt was being supportive and brought my grandmother to the movie in which I was starring in, and I was like, why? But glad it sounds like your Nana liked it.
Oh no, my Nana is very into all forms of horror for whatever that's worth. But to you right now, we always like starting Collider Connected at the very beginning. So I always like to ask, what was that moment when you realized that you had to be in this line of work here? Was there a specific performance? Was there a personal experience for you or a movie or show?
Yeah, my childhood wasn't filled with me watching television shows and having a favorite actor that I admired and thinking to myself, I'm going to do that one day. My journey to show business was very internal. I just always loved performing. My mom didn't let us watch that much TV, and I know we rented movies, but I didn't have a childhood that I've heard echoed from my fellow castmates and friends who work in this business, wherein they were like, I grew up going to the movie theater every Friday night with my dad, and this filmmaker meant so much to me. For me, it was just I loved the act of doing it. I was in school plays as a kid, and I, as an older teenager, started becoming more serious about athletics, and I played soccer, and I actually went to college for soccer. I didn't have a scholarship. I wasn't that good. It was Division III. However, it was what I was focusing my attention on, and the reason I chose the school was because they said that they would accept me onto the soccer team. And I was not happy in college. I am someone who needs a lot of freedom. I don't like being told what to do. And so I was really unhappy in the structured environment in which I felt like I was just following the steps you're supposed to take as a human being, yet it didn't fulfill me. I wish school did. Like, I think education is amazing and knowledge is so valuable, but for me, the school setting has never been something that excited me. And so I went to Europe the summer after my freshman year, after playing soccer for a year at college, and I thought, I'm deeply unhappy. I can't sleep at night. I am going to therapy for depression, and why don't I just really ask myself what it is that would be an exciting thing to follow as a career or as a passion? And I was like, the thing is, I've always wanted to be an actor, and I know it's not a reasonable dream, but I'm 19 years old, or no, I was 18 at the time, and I might as well try it right now. And so I got back from Europe, and I told my parents I was going to drop out of college, and they were mortified. And I said, I'm gonna pursue acting. And they were like, okay, good luck.
Oh, wow.
I went to acting school in New York City for a year and a half, and when I was there, I was so happy. I felt like I was in the right place. I loved reading plays, and I loved talking to these um, theater teachers that were just, huge acting dorks, really. And I got to know the inner acting dork inside of myself. And it was just, New York City is such an amazing city to study acting because it's just so full of humanity. And, you could go to see plays every night, and, you're just confronted by people all the time on the street and the subway. It's a very different life than the life I live now in LA, where you just are isolated in your cars and now in your home. But anyways,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a long answer, but for me, it wasn't. The moment might have been, it's so cliche, but traveling abroad, like but I remember thinking, like, how can I try to do something else? What is it that I want to do that would really turn me on? Because what I'm doing right now makes me feel dead inside. And acting has proven to be the love of my life. I'm never bored of her. I feel like I'm always learning. It's just it's such an honor to be able to do this job for a living.
God, I can't even tell you the joy that story just brings to me, because I love this industry so much, and I know it takes a lot of nerve, and it's a major leap to jump into a passion like this where everything is so uncertain. But to hear about, I don't know, the clarity that you found it's really inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm incredibly lucky that it worked out and I can continue to do it and support my life from acting. But I think that I think it's something that I love so much that if I hadn't been so lucky, I would still do it as a hobby. If it wasn't working as my form of income, I love storytelling through acting.
To flip that around a little, do you still do soccer as a hobby?
I don't. I still love physical exercise experiences, hiking, dancing, yoga, Zumba, you name it.
We need to get you a role in a film where you play a professional soccer player or something.
I agree. And I have some ideas of who I would love to direct that. I mean, there are not enough great female athlete movies.
Maybe it's just because I'm in the soccer zone right now, but obviously the first one that comes to mind is Bend It Like Beckham, but A League of Their Own, stuff like that too.
Sure, we can name 5 great ones, but I think we should name a lot more.
I 100% agree with that. I want to go back to going to acting school, because that's a topic that comes up a lot with filmmaking, and I guess it's more so behind the lens, where someone will wonder, oh, is it worth paying the tuition and going to school to learn about this, or am I better off just going out there and getting experience? So, what advice would you give to an aspiring actor out there who is weighing whether or not to do a traditional program like you did?
I loved it, and it was immensely valuable. And I don't think that I would be where I am without it. I think you absolutely learn on the job. And I have a lot of friends that grew up acting and were child actors. And so they, that's a great education on set doing. But you're not always that lucky. And I think it's important to have your time to figure out who you are as a performer. And I had that in my time at Stella Adler. And I actually still continue to go to acting class. I think that it's a funny art form in that someone else has to ask you to do it. You have to have either a stage to perform to the audience to, or a group of people filming you. It's not something you can practice alone at your home studio. So I think that it can also be like very lonely, like when you're waiting for jobs or you're waiting for your next audition, to be able to actually flex your muscles and to work on your craft. You have to have a group of people to do that with. And so I think acting classes are great.
So jumping from working in a class setting to actually getting your first big gig here, because, to jump into the business with an opportunity like Suburgatory is just a huge deal. So when you look back on that experience, what about it makes you maybe say, I'm so glad that I had that first experience, that first big experience on a show like that with those people?
Well, my first experience ever on a set was my guest starring role on Shameless.
Yes.
And I was so nervous, and I felt so taken care of or so supported by the cast and the crew, and especially the director of my first episode. And I think they could sense that I was scared, but I was also ready and eager to perform and to play this character with them. And I look back and I think, wow, I was so young. I was so lucky. I think when people talk about this business and they talk about luck being a necessary element, it's very true. However, okay, so say it's like 98% luck. The other 2% is really, 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 really hard work. And it's funny, sometimes I hear myself say that and I'm like, there's a lot harder jobs than acting, obviously. However, you do have to have a resilience and courage to keep going in this business, and a big heart and passion and curiosity. But when I look back and I think that role was, I just think back and I think I was so lucky. I mean, and I'm so grateful for Shameless, and then of course Suburgatory, which was instrumental to my career. Emily Kapnick was an incredible boss. It was so great. I look back and it's really nice to have a female boss. It makes a huge difference in this business. And I felt very respected by Emily and taken care of by her. And I would love to work with her again. I think she's so smart. And I was actually just thinking about all the writers of the Suburgatory show, and they've all gone on to write such interesting projects. And the cast members, from SNL members to Carly Chaikin, to my dad, Jeremy Sisto, it was like such a talented and kind group of people. And also comedy is so fun. After working in this business I moved to LA, by the way, like 10 years ago today, and I had my first auditions summer 10 years ago to this summer. So I've been here for 10 years, and I lost my chain of thought.
I'm just impressed you've been there for 10 years now. I can't believe how long it's been.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But why was I saying that? Supportive group, whatever. Oh, comedy. I'm like everything that I'm a part of. I want there to be like a little bit of humor at least.
I can understand that. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead to Zoey yet, but the balance between the emotion and the comedy on that show blows my mind. But one thing I often get curious about, especially when you have such a big breakout opportunity like Suburgatory, is did you find that when that show wrapped up, you were given like a certain type of role that mirrored a lot of what you did there? Or were you already at the point where you were kind of amassing credits beyond the show that you were able to do a little bit of everything, which is what you do now?
Right. I believe that at the time, the projects that came my way were very similar to Suburgatory, which makes sense. I look back at my career as a 23-year-old, and I can see in my choices and the ways that I moved through my life that I was confused. Your early 20s is, I'm so happy to be 30. And I think that I'm always cultivating my voice as an artist and really getting to know myself and what I want to make and how I want to make it. And in my early 20s, I was just, saying yes to the jobs that came my way. And I was, again, to say, I'll stop saying about how fortunate I am because it's probably annoying, but I was fortunate enough that those projects were with interesting, talented, cool people. But I look back and I'm like, I feel like I didn't have a voice, like a voice in the way that I'm now as a 30-year-old really trying to honor and like specify and no regrets. We're just reminiscing right now.
Yeah. I mean, a very, very big voice that taps into so many different genres here. Cause it's like right before I started my Zoey binge, I watched, I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. And I don't think it could be two polar opposite roles and tones and styles. So
nobody knows that that's me. Like I've had multiple conversations with people talking about that movie and I'm like, I'm in that.
I couldn't. It took me a hot second to put two and two together, and when I did, I was really shocked. I love that movie, by the way.
Me too. Macon is incredible, and we're all still friends. We're all on a text chain. We talk like every day.
Maybe you should get Macon to direct this soccer movie.
Macon, are you listening?
That's what Collider Connected is. Actually, I'm just like reverse engineering that title right now. Let's make Collider Connected about connecting filmmakers that we want to see make movies about certain topics. I'm just going to make that up now.
You heard it here first.
I have a feeling I know the answer to this question, but what is something that you've done for a movie or a TV show that now makes you think, really cool that I did that, but I'm never going to do it again?
Screaming for my life is something that I've done enough of. Not to get rid of horror altogether, because I just watched Dr. Sleep the other night. I loved it.
So good.
It's like horror films are so rich and they're so fun to watch. I love them so much. So I'm not poo-pooing on all horror films. I'm just saying I'm not sure I want to spend a whole 3 months of my life running and screaming for survival.
Very, very understandable. So with that in mind, we do know about Evil Dead now. If Lee Cronin, who I'm a huge fan of, if he happened to say, hey, why don't we bring Mia back for another movie? Would you be interested?
No.
I get it. That movie was a lot.
Yeah,
it was exhausting.
I'm so proud of it. Like, it's such a wild movie. But I think, it's okay, moving on.
It's the blood rain and all that. I get it. But sticking with the topic of working with Fetty briefly, what is it about his leadership on set that makes you and your co-cast doing those kinds of crazy things on set?
What's the question?
What is it about Fetty's leadership on set that makes you guys comfortable jumping into crazy set pieces?
I guess as an actor, and at least for me, I am really there to serve the story. So sometimes serving the story means acting like a total dodo brain and like slapstick comedy, or serving the story means you gotta cut your tongue in half because you are possessed by the devil. So you just gotta do what the script says because that's the story you signed up for telling.
Doing your job and you're doing it well.
Yeah.
I have one more movie I want to bring up before getting into Zoey, because this is going to sound random, but Monster Trucks might have been my favorite set visit I was ever on.
Oh my God, I remember that.
That 2-day trip was delightful, and the whole group that was there with me, we all still talk about it. It was just so refreshing to get to go on a set of a completely original idea and to learn about a new story in a new world. But, not going to beat around the bush here. Obviously, it didn't pan out as everyone expected. So, we get one view as press covering a movie where its release date is pushed and pushed. What is that like from your perspective when, you pour a lot of hard work into a big movie like that, and then you watch the release date get pushed and pushed?
Yeah, obviously you want all the things that you make to flourish and do well and succeed. However, when I'm making a project, something happens in my brain where probably because it's too overwhelming to think about, where I just don't think about the end result. I don't think about that this is actually going to be made. I mean, of course, sometimes I do, but it doesn't compute when I'm making the thing because I'm so concentrated and focused on the making of that. The idea that it'll ever be released and that it'll be received a certain way, I can't allow that to enter, or I would have some sort of existential breakdown. So with monster trucks, it's disappointing when you make something that doesn't pan out to the way that you want it, or the director. I really, really love and respect Chris Wedge. So it's disappointing for me and for him and for Paramount when a movie doesn't make the money that they wanted it to, or that it wasn't received in the way that they wanted to. However, I have so many friends with young children who reach out and say that the movie, the kids loved it. And that's important. That's the best thing to hear. And especially for children, to make a movie that's entertaining and fun for a kid makes me filled with joy, So that movie, it's really out of your hands.
Yeah. No, it's it's not easy when stuff like that happens. I do wonder, does an experience like that give you any added interest in, I don't know, maybe producing or stepping into that kind of role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a really good eye for people that would fit together. So I could either be a matchmaker or I could be a producer. And I'm also, I love getting involved in the production side of things. And on Zoeys, I'm not a producer. However, Austin has been really generous with me, and he is very he listens when I have a suggestion or a thought about how production can go more smoothly, or thoughts about my character. And so I would love to eventually produce.
I would like to hear your voice amplified that way. So make it happen, please. So Zoey, now, I'm wondering, what do you think was the biggest misconception when that show first started airing? Or maybe what were you so eager to scream out to the world about what they were in for? Because to be completely honest with you, I saw a commercial and I'm like, nah, that's not for me. I don't want to watch a silly comedy with music in it. And then someone told me about the emotional wallop of it. And I mean, I was hooked within minutes and I got very obsessed with it. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about what your show had to offer?
Let me just say, I think you're such a great interviewer. I really love your questions. It's really nice talking to you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I was confident that when you'd watch the show will speak for itself. And the first trailers that came out for the show, I did notice that they didn't involve what I think is the core of the show, which is the relationship between Zoey and her father, which is very emotional most of the time because he is suffering from a neurological condition and he is slowly dying throughout the whole first season. And I guess the biggest misconception would be that this is another Glee. And our show is nothing like Glee, except for that it's a musical. And, Glee was radical and amazing show in its own right. But the music was about watching these incredible singers perform songs really well. And our musical element is not about just great performers performing really well. It's a tool of storytelling about this young woman learning about the connectedness of humanity, about the musicality metaphorically in life and how to let go, and about, you know, how we can communicate with music things that we can't communicate with words. And I think that the best thing about our show is how full of heart it is, and that's a testament to Austin Winsberg and then Mandy Moore, our choreographer. And in turn, I really poured my heart into this project. And so I would say that the misconception about the show is that it's another Glee, or that it's a musical comedy, because it's much more than that. It's I guess you could, if you want to say it in the simplest terms, it's a dramedy. But for me, it's really an exploration in grief and connectedness and shared humanity.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it. And it's like earlier in the conversation, you were downplaying the hard work that goes into acting, but then I watch a show like this. First of all, acting is very hard. I tried it. I'm terrible at it. It's like a completely different like brain space that I can't access. But I feel like, especially during the last few months, content like this feels even more necessary for me, because I'm looking for different ways to process like emotion and very real things I'm going through in my life. And I feel like this is a concept that someone might not know they need in order to tap into something that they can't quite figure out for themselves. So all of your heavy lifting with stuff like this, I think it's got real value.
Thank you so much. I mean, I do too. I think that art has value, and I think that to have a show, our show, move people and help them during a very confusing, scary, tumultuous, uncertain, hard time shows the power of art. And I'm really proud of our show.
You should be. When you're prepping for a scene in the show, how does your prep process differ when you're doing a dialogue-driven scene versus one where you are responsible for the musical number?
I don't even know where I would start. Wow. Well, How Do I Live was an interesting experience for me as an actor. It was the first time, because we actually did, so episode 8, I sing and perform 6 songs. And How Do I Live, I knew was going to be very emotional for me. So I told Mandy, and she so generously was like, sure. I was like, can we just not involve dance with that one? I just really want to be simple in that it's just me and my dad and the expression of what I'm going through. And I look back and I'm like, was that fucked up of me to just say, Mandy, I'm taking this one? But she was like, no, we have like a good rapport and I love her so much. And I've said to her in person, and I say to you now, Mandy, if you're watching, thank you for being like, sure, take it. So anyways, there was no dance. And then the assistant director, Shay, was really generous with me and a great friend. And she was like, tell me which ones you want to do on which day. Because everyone knew, like, I had a lot of anxiety about this episode. It was like a colossal undertaking, because not only am I performing 6 songs, most people do 1 an episode, if that. I was doing 6 in 1 episode, that I had to prep all that while shooting the series. So it was really scary, and I had a lot of support from this team of people, and Shay was like, which do you want to do first? So I was like, I want to do How Do I Live first, because as an actor, when you have a scene that you know is going to be really emotional, it like plagues you, and it's just so nice to get over with. So if I go out of the way, I'll know that there's no like emotional moment that I have to anticipate, and I can just focus on singing and dancing. So it was, besides how I've got the music in me, it was only my second time ever lip syncing. And this wasn't a dance. It was like very close on my face. So I was like, technically, I have to just be good at lip syncing, was something I like forgot, that you have to be able to sell that the words aren't coming out of your mouth. So we do one take, and I'm highly emotional, and the emotionality doesn't match the pre-record. So even though my lips are moving at the right time, it doesn't look right, because what's happening outside is so emotional, and the music I recorded a week before on a sound studio. So they were like, okay, that was really good, but it just doesn't match. So then I was like, okay, I'll sing live, and I don't care if it sounds bad. So then I do the next take. I'm highly emotional, and when you cry, you can't breathe. There's a lot of gas, so I can't make noise. So song wasn't coming out of my mouth. So I was like, now what? And I had an acting coach on set, my friend Megan, and she was like, just breathe. Like, to be able to sing, you just have to breathe. And so then, but it was an interesting process, and I did it again, and I was able to sing and cry at the same time. Not that crying was necessarily the goal, but it was like, it's hard to have emotional freedom in set choreography and set pre-records, because then you have to do the delicate balance of like threading it's like ADR, but performing ADR in musical and acting at the same time on camera. So it's a whole new set of skills that I was learning on the day, and ultimately we pulled it off.
Extremely well. What is the schedule like for episode 8 compared to other schedules? Are you essentially putting in, I don't know, at least twice the amount of work to accomplish all this?
I mean, I was looking back, and, it was about, I would do an average of 80-hour weeks every week. And I'm in practically every scene of the entire series. I was eventually begging for more scenes off so I could catch up on the fittings that I couldn't do, or hair color appointments, or choreography, or pre-record. So episode 8 wasn't actually more hours. I mean, that episode I am in every scene, so I didn't have any time off. But we took 3 days off of production for me to learn all the dances. So I guess if you add those 3 days, it was more hours. But it's episode 8 is the most proud of anything of I am more proud of episode 8 than anything I've ever made in my career.
I love hearing that.
Grammatically correct.
Yeah, no, that definitely made sense, and I would think it's true. And I love a lot of the stuff that you worked on, but that episode, so I was hooked well before that. But that was the episode, when you're watching a TV show that you're really into, and all of a sudden the panic sets in that, there's a ticking clock on that show and eventually it stops. That was the episode where I started to panic, like, oh, what am I going to do when this is over?
Oh, that's really sweet. Well, it's over. We got season 2 pickup.
So happy about that. Actually, what is that process like for you? Because I don't necessarily know the correct calendar for making decisions like that, but it felt like it was a little down to the wire to me. Were you guys kind of waiting on edge at that point?
Yeah, yes. It was definitely it. Usually you find out in May, and we found out a month later because of COVID-19 and restrictions on filming and budgetary changes and, stuff that I'm not privy to. So yes, we were like, please happen. And it did. And I'm so grateful.
Good. I'm very, very happy for you guys. I know there's probably a lot of answers to this question. I could think of many myself, but if you had to pick one member from this ensemble who took what you initially saw on the page for their character above and beyond anything you ever could have anticipated, who would you want to highlight and why?
Alex Newell. Mo on paper is a fabulous next door neighbor who knows a lot more about music and is, the opposite of Zoey, in that they're carefree and adventurous, and Zoey is coder-minded, mathematical rule follower. But episode 4, which was Zoey's Extraordinary Neighbor, was such a beautiful showcase of Alex's talents, and he's so dynamic. And the scene where he talks about not being accepted at church and being, the only person who ever saw him for who he truly was with his mom was so moving and brave. And what's so amazing about making a show like ours, which is a musical, is that at the end you could tell the same story and have Mo show up dressed female representing, and that would be moving. But in our show, we get Alex showing up dressed female, and then singing This Little Light of Mine with gospel back. And Alex is, I think, the best singer I've ever heard in my life. And so to watch that expression of self-acceptance and ecstatic joy, and for me, it's like a spiritual experience. And I'm in a church, and when I hear Alex sing, it's like, I'm like, oh, maybe God is real. So I just want to highlight that performance. There's been these lists coming out of predicted Emmy nominations, and I really would like to see Alex on those lists. And I think that his work should be applauded, because what a performance, hilarious, incredibly heartbreaking and moving, and just an incredible singer. So love you, Alex.
Yes. Totally am behind every single thing that you just said there. The character of Mo was definitely a major standout in season 1. Another thing that really caught me by surprise in the show is the love triangle that happens, because usually, the cliche love triangle does not do anything for me, but that's not what we have here. It's a very complex situation between the three of them, and I feel like that made it feel more true to life than most of the other love triangles I've seen. So how did that evolve from the point where you read about it the first time in early scripts to what we actually get in the final season?
Well, I think, early on in the script, we don't know these characters that well. And, every good TV show, every good movie's got a love triangle. Not everyone, but we love a love triangle. It's clear. So I would say it's a testament to Austen's writing that he was able to write this story very messy, because that's what a love triangle is, especially when there's like an emotional affair going on with somebody who's engaged to another person. And I feel like we did a really good job at not fulfilling any gender stereotypes, and also not pushing against them so hard either that it's like some statement against gender stereotypes. I think that we just told the story honestly, how young people get themselves into confusing, messy love situations. And also a testament to each John Clarence Stewart and Skylar Astin, who play Simon and Max. And I have chemistry with both of those guys. I worked with John before on a show called What If for Netflix, so we have a previous relationship, and I really think he's such a deep, loving person and performer, and Skylar is just so hilarious, and both of them are such good singers and performers, so that's helpful. And they're both very attractive, so we like those. We like that. Oh my god, I feel like your embarrassing aunt who has a fine, and they're attractive, and we love it. Okay. Anyway,
you can't deny that you're in good company on this show.
Yeah. Also, like, I'm just trying to break it down. I don't know. To me, the love triangle aspect of the story has always been, I don't want to say the least interesting because I think it's interesting, but it's sort of the last thing that Jane, the actor, is thinking about with Zoey, because I'm just like, my dad's dying, like that is what's happening in this story. And the love is like, yeah, Zoey needs action and Zoey needs connection, but like I can't choose. So I guess I want to take back the word uninteresting, because I obviously, if I was a viewer of the show, I would be perving out like, which one is she gonna kiss? But as the actor, I am more focused on Zoey's family life.
Yeah.
And so the love triangle, I'm always like, oh yeah, that exists too.
Oh, that's the primary core of season 1. And I did want to ask you about reading the script for the final episode, because another thing I feel like we don't see very often in, shows like this on network TV that are comedy and dramas is where it winds up in the end, because I do think there's a feeling of positivity from the growth and the closure experienced in that last episode, but it also has a really sobering touch to it too, where it doesn't necessarily rely on a cliffhanger or something that like sends you on your way saying, now you could feel positive about life and everything's fine. So were you surprised to see, a little bit of a darker ending to it?
No, because I knew the entire season that the show was going to end with Mitch's death. So we were always just anticipating that, or at least I was, and it felt a little too real. As Jane playing Zoey, I felt so connected with Peter, and that storyline means so much to me. And, it also coincided with the show ending, and we didn't know if we were going to have a season 2. And so I wasn't surprised. And it was a very emotional ending. I was going to say something about something you said, and now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, about reading the script.
Yes.
We had a pretty wild table read for the final episode in which everyone was weeping. Like, I don't mean, I looked up and I saw a tear. It was like we were all like, like tissue boxes, tears. Like I've never been in a community reading a script where everyone was that affected. It was kind of mind blowing. We all left like dizzy. We were like, is everyone okay? I think that scene with Peter and I, where I'm watching my father, I'm saying I instead of Zoey, but I'm watching my father take his final breaths, and that scene where he is really her father again, and that he like takes care of her and holds her and tells her in this moment that is like the worst moment and the scariest and the most lonely and the most heartbreaking, she gets to have her father hold her and say, I'm always going to be with you, and comfort her and say, you're going to be okay because I'm with you. And that was just so moving for all of us. And then after that scene, we get American Pie, which is such a cool thing.
It is so well shot too. Yeah. Like as much as it's difficult to go through the cry session of watching it again and again, I think I must have watched that scene like 10 times at this point.
I've watched it many times too. When the finale aired, I was so emotional because I was grieving that I hadn't seen my friends in 3 months, and I was scared that the show wasn't going to get picked up, and this project meant so much to me, and I was just moved by watching the show. So I went on YouTube and I listened and watched American Pie. That's a little revealing, but I just missed my friends, and I think what's so great about that sorry, I should plug my computer in. I think what's so great about that number is that, oh wait,
you're still good.
Okay. What's great about that number is that it's about the community that has stood by Zoey this whole season, like all the people that have helped her and stood by her. And yeah.
I have one semi-silly question before we wind this down.
Okay.
Do you know the results of Zoey's MRI, or will she ever have to get another one to get a diagnosis for what was bothering her?
So she gets, it was cut out of the pilot, but there is a scene in the pilot that we shot where he calls and he's like, there's nothing wrong with your brain. And she's like, are you sure? And Max is in the elevator and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, uh-huh. And for some reason, I think timing probably it was cut. So the doctor doesn't know what's wrong, but we saw some fishy business in the finale where he was whistling I've Got the Music in Me, so I'm expecting some answers in season 2, Austin.
Yeah, I have so many like creative ideas that are making me excited for the possibilities there. As we wind this down, I'm sure you have a million and one things that are on the bucket list right now, but is there anything in particular that you're just really itching to do next? Like something that feels like a good next step for you?
Our soccer movie.
Oh, well, I'm glad we cleared that up.
I would love to make a soccer movie. And I have recently worked with a couple directors that really I felt considered me and made me a better actor, and it just felt like really collaborative. And so I would love to find a great director, to work with, and I have many in my mind of dream directors that I would love to work with and I would love to make a film. I haven't made a movie in a couple years. I've been doing a lot of TV. So whether it's our soccer movie or I have some ideas. I'll write them in my journal and then throw them in the fire and then hope that they come true.
Oh, I kind of like that. I thought that was a negative thing at first, but I'm like, no, that's like a nice little ritual there.
Yeah.
As we wind this down, I've got, let's say, 3 rapid fire questions for you. Okay. First, do you collect anything?
No.
No? That's probably better off.
I am like a kind of a psycho about like organization and cleanliness, and I don't hold on to stuff. I'm not sentimental about stuff. I'm constantly giving people things. I really don't like closets to be full and unorganized. And I don't collect anything.
I'm the other side of the coin. I am super neat and organized, but I'm very sentimental, if you haven't noticed.
I can see your organization skills back there.
Yeah. The only way I keep all that paper is if it's in a formal collage. If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Bread and butter, because nothing else tastes as good as bread and butter.
You know what? I feel like that's the right answer. Either bread and butter or bread and peanut butter, whichever one.
Butter's butter. I don't love peanut butter. I like tahini, but I don't love peanut butter.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
If you could choose whether or not to have Zoey's ability for yourself, would you want it or would you not?
Absolutely not.
In that case, if you had to pick a superpower for yourself, what would it be and why?
I mean, I would want to fly, because imagine how amazing that would feel, and the views and what parts of nature you could visit that you can't get to by plane or by foot. So probably flying.
That's fair. I feel like it's flying or teleporting, so I could just snap my fingers and either be in LA or be on the East Coast with my family.
Are you in the East Coast right now?
That I am. I am in my childhood bedroom.
Wow.
That's my life for the last 3 months, but I can't complain.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, it's still freaking me out a little bit, but it's all good. We're safe. We're healthy. We're watching good stuff thanks to you and the Zoeys Extraordinary Playlist team. Seriously, a huge wholehearted congratulations, because this show is really hands down one of the best things I've watched all year, and you are phenomenal in it. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely talking to you.
You too. To anybody out there who has not yet watched it, it's streaming right now on Hulu. It's also due on Peacock, and I believe you can access it on the NBC app as well. So get on it, guys. Again, Jane, thank you for your time today. Big thanks to everybody out there watching this episode of Collider Connected. Like and share it before you leave, and keep an eye out for many more of them.